In this video I will focus on exporter part of Prometheus, SNMP exporter in particular. We'll show how to use configuration generator to ease configuration file creation and possibility to create custom configuration with required metric labels. So the Prometheus queries SNMP exporter software component which can reside on the same as Prometheus or remote server. SNMP exporter, according to provided HTTP query attributes, queries remote devices by means of SNMP protocol. From each remote device, exporter requests a list of predefined SNMP OIDs, called metrics. From switch, metrics like system health, interface states, and utilization can be requested. From routers, in addition to system health and interface metrics, dynamic routing metrics can be requested. That means, for different device types, separate list is required. Those lists are summarized in exporter configuration file and called modules. SNMP exporter configuration can be created manually, but with the help of generator application, it's much faster and easier. Application consists from one binary file, and since it's dependent on NetSNMP, it should be built on particular system for use. After the build process, binary file will provide required functionality. To use generator YAML configuration file should be created in advance. Generator YAML file describes metrics to parse. Afterwards, at the time of execution of generator, it will read NetSNMP provided MIB files, parse the data, and build a SNMP YAML configuration file, which can be directly used as a SNMP exporter configuration file. Generator configuration is similar to exporter configuration file. It just defines what data to read from MIB files and what to drop or overwrite. Module name defines name of module we are defining and will consist from list of metrics. Walk defines metrics list to look for, can be numbered or named, including tables and even particular instance OIDs. Version, max repetitions, retries, and timeout defines SNMP request parameters to use for this particular module. It supports all SNMP versions, and according authentication should be provided. Just for generation purposes, authentication parameters are not required, but required for fully operational configuration file. Lookups are meant to create additional metric labels based on table indexes. That will be shown later in this video. Overrides are useful if MIB file definition has some errors in OID type definition, or for some reason it's mandatory to change metric type. Sample generator configuration file defines two modules. Interfaces module will use interfaces table from interfaces MIB file. Will parse all interface table OIDs which are under provided OID. System module will use SNMP version 2 MIB file and invoke only one scalar metric, system name. Both modules defines SNMP version 1 and 2C community string example for authentication. After configuration file is ready, generator can be executed and will generate SNMP YAML file. Those are all parsed metrics. As can be seen, they correlate with interfaces table. We'll review generated SNMP YAML file. Interfaces module defines SNMP tree to walk and extract for monitoring only defined metrics. Since interface number metric is outside of table, it has no index specified. As stands from MIB file definition, in SNMP exporter configuration according metric type is mapped. Metrics like interface index and interface description are part of interface table, and table index is defined. Table can have multiple indexes, and in case of broken MIB file, sometimes it's required to create additional indexes manually. Index is holding all table metrics together and used to map labels to correct instances of metric. System module defines only one scalar metric, and getRequest instead of walk is used in that case. Since not all MIB file parsed metrics are practically required, it's useful to remove all unnecessary metric data In that way, time required to query metric data from device is minimized. It's also useful to create additional metric labels to easier distinguish devices and their state. For comparison purposes, we'll create two modules with one metric. InOctets module will have only default table index label. InOctets labels module, additionally to index label, will have interface operation, administration, description, alias, and interface name labels. And now it's possible to proceed with generation. Generator is smart enough, and metrics which were used for labels were added to SNMP work list. Metrics used for labels does not require separate definition, and module consists from only one defined metric. After SNMP YAML configuration is ready, it can be applied to SNMP exporter. Since SNMP exporter is separate application, it can be accessed and tested separately. In my case, SNMP exporter is located on local PC on default TCP port of 9116. Here we can look into current configuration. Undefined parameters are shown with default values. To query devices, so-called targets, just enter IP address or resolvable hostname and module used for request. Result is the exporter output data, which is read by Prometheus. Module and target parameters are seen in URL. This module defines only one metric interface in octets, with only default ifIndex label to distinguish mapped interface. Additionally to that, exporter query metrics are provided. Those are useful to monitor query time for troubleshooting purposes. InOctets labels module defines additional labels, and as can be seen, allows much easier distinguish interfaces by their name and state based on label values. To be able to access exporter data, Prometheus configuration should be updated accordingly. Here, job InOctets and InOctets labels are defined. They are identical and differs only with applied module name. Relabel config is required to apply correct HTTP query target parameter, Prometheus added instance label, and exporter address override. Exporter data can be accessed directly from Prometheus interface. After Prometheus queries defined targets, its database would have metrics with all defined labels and labels added by Prometheus like job name and instance name. Labels allow to query database for specific info. In this case, if InOctets metric is provided for management 1 interface with operational status up in job InOctets labels. Thank you for watching. If you liked the content, hit like, subscribe, comment, and see you in the following videos.